Hello everyone, Joe here, and today we are going to talk about finding the best composition and then bringing out the best of the image that is maybe hiding in that original file edit. So I'm going to go, I didn't want to go into the develop module. Let's go to the library module, and I'm comparing all these three images. In fact, let's hit Shift Tab, which gets rid of our sidebars, and then we'll hit the lights key, L. Once darkens, twice gets rid of it. So here we have three shots from Valley of the Gods in Mexican Hat, Utah, from basically the same position, just with some slight movements involved. And so we've got three different compositions here. And the question is, which one is the best? Well, part of it involves what is it you want to share, but the other part of it is that just which one is going to work the best. And I think it's probably fairly obvious, but let's take a look and see the pluses and minuses of each shot. In this one on the left, not terrible. However, in the bottom left, we've got this one brush here that is cut off. And what I always tell my photographers when we're on location is, if there's an element you're going to include in the shot, include all of it generally. Don't cut it off. If this wasn't here, this image could potentially work, although the other problem is that this brush right here is so much bigger than the formation off into the distance that it pretty much becomes the subject. Now, we could make that work. We could make that the subject, but that's not the story that I want to tell. Going to the middle shot, we have pretty much nothing in the foreground, just some random brush around with no light, and then the formation. The formation's in a nice position, slightly off to the center, but there's really kind of almost no reason for the foreground, so it needs some foreground interest. Then we get to this one over to the right, which fixes the problems. Stepping back just a little bit, now we have this entire brush here. We've got this one here a little bit smaller. It's still bigger than this, but we're going to live with that. We've also got some slight changes in the light. The sun moved around a little bit. We're behind a cloud or out from behind a cloud. We've got a little bit of light over here. We've got nice light on this brush. And off in the distance, the formation is lit well. So I think it's pretty clear that this is going to offer us the best chance to create a nice composition, but we still need to help it along. So let's choose this one and go into the develop module and see what we can do to make it interesting. Now, I've already got a bunch of sliders adjusted here. I did that first. In fact, let's make a virtual copy of this one, and I'll reset it just so you can see what it started at. So there was the original, and there was the edit by adjusting these sliders. So you can see it's already a huge improvement over that. So we've gotten to here, but we need to do more. And what is it we need to do? When you're picking out an image, composition to me is really the king. Are you going to be able to pull out a good composition? And obviously make sure that the image is sharp. In fact, to do that, let's zoom in 100%, and we look at the foreground, and we can see, yeah, it's pretty sharp in the foreground. And then if we come all the way out to the background, everything is nice and sharp. So that's good. And if we go to detail, you'll see it's only got the default. I haven't done any sharpening yet. Let's go ahead and do a kind of a basic sharpening. I'm going to actually do a fair amount, which will add some crispness to it. But I only want it to sharpen the edges. I don't want it to sharpen the sky, because that's just going to make it noisier. So what we do is hold down the Alt key. Click on the masking slider. That turns it all white, which means everything's getting sharpened. As we drag off to the right, you see stuff start to disappear, and only the things that are in white, these edges, are going to get the sharpening. And you can actually hide this on and off, and you can see the little bit of crispness that appears from that sharpening. So that's pretty good. Also underneath here, there's a new denoise. Now, there's really not a lot of noise in this image, but if we super zoom in, let's go to 300%, and you can see there's a little bit of grain in the sky. Now, again, we're looking at it at 300%, not something that would actually print, but let's go ahead and get rid of it anyway. So we're going to click on denoise, which is one of the new filters in the latest Lightroom, and it's going to go in and actually show you the image at 300%, and you can push on it and hold, and you'll see it with and without the denoise. And it actually does a nice job. You can see it smooths out the sky. So I'm just going to click on go ahead and enhance it. Now the image doesn't look that sharp right now, but we're not looking at it at the resolution it was captured at. This is magnified 300%. So don't concern yourself with that. This was just about the noise. As soon as this is done, we'll take a look at it. Back at 100%. All right, so now we look at it 100%, and yeah, it just makes for a little clearer image. So let's go back to full screen, or rather, let's hit the zoom to get out of that and take a look at the things we can do to make this image more interesting and have more flow. And it's going to mostly be with light. So let's come up to the masking panel, and we're going to choose a brush, or the K key. Now, if you're not sure where to start when you want to do any kind of light painting, what I like to do is to look at the parts that are actually already darker and help them along. So I'm going to start with Auto Mask on right here. And all of these areas that are being cast with shadow, you can see these shadows here. I'm just going to go ahead and add to them. I'm going to also add something in here, and also these deep parts in these formations way off in the distance. Where else is there shadow? Though there's some shadow there. It's a little darker over here, so I'm going to add some of that. The middle, I think I'm going to leave alone because we're going to use that differently. Got a little bit of deep shadow there, a little bit there. I think that's pretty good. So now let's bring the exposure down of those areas and make those shadows darker. Well, that looks better already. Look how much depth. You got to have shadows to if you're going to really appreciate the light. So we come up to the masking panel again, or you can cut to the chase and just hit the K key, which will give you your brush again. And what do I want lighter? Well, I want to add some life into this brush. It's kind of important. We'll add some to here too. We've also got some light there, and this little slope right here has got light on it. Basically what I want to do is create a path of light that takes us up to the formation, something like that. Where else might use a little bit of light? We'll break it up a little bit, maybe up in there, kind of through the center of the image. I think something like that is going to be better. So now let's add some exposure to those areas. Oh, and look how that starts to come to life. In fact, I'm going to add a little bit more. The beauty is it's still live. I can continue to add to this. And I think that's looking pretty good. Add a little bit more light in here. That looks great. By the way, if you want to see where your parts are that you're painting, hit the O key. That's overlay. It'll show you what you've added, and if you can decide if you want more. So what else? What else can we do? Well, I think it needs a crop. It's a little bit too wide left to right, and if we can crop this a little more as a vertical, I think it's going to add a little more power and direction, because as we make it thinner, it's going to force the viewer more to start at the bottom and work the way up. So I'm going to hit enter on that twice and go to the cropping tool. I'm going to click on the lock here to unlock it so I can crop in any direction as much as I want. So I'm going to come in. Yes, I'm going to cut into this brush a little bit. And I'm going to come in from the left as well. Kind of getting that tall, thin look here. Do I need that much sky? Maybe a little bit less. Maybe I'll come in a little from the bottom and then see if I want to move this left to right. I think I do. I'm going to cut a little more of that brush on the bottom. On this one, I'm going to cut off a little bit more of that. Why? Well, in this case, it's making it closer to the physical size of this thing. So let's hit enter on there, and we're going to add a vignette. So we come down to effects. I'm going to add my standard -12 vignette. And then I want to overall lighten the middle leading up to the image. So we're going to add one more mask. We're going to add a radial gradient. And I click and drag. I want something, something about like that. I'm going to click on the black dot, and I'm going to angle it a little bit so it kind of comes diagonally across the image. So let's add a little bit of exposure into that entire thing to lighten up the entire middle of the image. And the other beauty is I can move this around. Maybe I'll even make it a little thinner. Something maybe about like that, and I think that looks pretty good. So let's hit enter, and let's look at that full screen. Yep, I think that's looking pretty good. Now consider, let's go back up to our masking panel. I'm going to hide the masks. I'm just going to click on the eyeball here and look at the difference with and without the masks. Look at the difference in the amount of life that is in this thing. Did I make it a little too bright on this thing? I might have. I'm going to bring down just the highlights of that middle that middle thing, and maybe the whites too. There we go. Just need a little white taken out. I'm also going to go to the entire image, hit enter. As I'm looking at it, I think it needs a little more saturation. So let's add a little bit more. Oh, yeah, that's what it needed. Cool. And again, there's with everything turned off. And look at the difference between the one on the left, which is just with our basic edits, and the one on the right where we painted with light to kind of create that S path that leads us from the bottom up to the subject. There's the raw image that we started with. There's our initial edits. Not terrible. I can live with that. But then we add the light. And it looks extreme at first. If you look away and then come back to it, you can decide, yeah, okay, that's better. And you may decide, you know what, maybe it's a little too bright. Maybe I made it a little too bright. Maybe I did. Let's go look at our masks again. Let's go back up to here. And you know what? On this one, I'm going to bring this down. I don't want it to affect the top at all. And on this one, so let's turn down the flow with the Alt key being held in. Hit the O. There we go. I just took off. You can see it getting a little bit darker, just that formation. And maybe in there as well. Maybe I made that just a smidge too bright. Okay, let's hit enter on that. Look at full screen again. That was the answer. So now we have the light path starting down here, giving us a nice F or S curve rather, and it takes us right to the top. And I think we got a winner. So again, if you think that that's what we started with, there's our original raw file. We did our basic edit and crop on it to get it to there, and then we added the light to bring it to there. And I think we have a winner. So there you go. When you have an image that you're going to decide which one to edit, or a series of images, move around a little bit, see what works, what you think works best. Look at them in the software. And by the way, after you're done with this, the other two really, they can go away. There's really no reason to keep them. It'll keep your image catalog from getting too bloated. I don't listen to myself half the time that way, but if I really was better at this, I would get rid of those two immediately. But there you go. We started with a really boring file, turned it into something really nice. It's about seeing the composition and then shaping it with light. That's it for today. I thank you for joining me. I wish you guys a great week, and I'll see you online again soon. Till next time, bye-bye.